Tom Hardy is in Havoc.
Okay. And it's the same dude who directed this, right?
Yes.
Do you know what it's about?
Tom Hardy is a cop and he shoots people.
Okay, I'm in.
I don't know if he's a corrupt cop. I don't know if he's a good cop. All I saw was he shoots people and throws some things at people. I mean,
Okay.
that's all I know.
Has this dude made anything else of note besides The Raid 2, and this upcoming Tom Hardy movie?
He made, I believe it's called Apostle
Okay.
with Dan Stevens, which is a horror movie. And I believe, if memory serves, he directed a VHS 2 short with a director whose name I cannot pronounce. It's Timo, and some more letters I can't pronounce. But he made the best sequence, or segment rather, of any of the VHSs, and really, honestly, like top 5 best horror anthology segments in VHS 2, and I'm blanking on what it's called, but it's about a cult, and there's a demon, and
Mm-hmm.
it's Safe Haven, I believe it's called, and it's
Okay.
fantastic. Outside of that, Apostle and the Raid movies, the only other thing that he was ever attached to, and it's one of the best canceled projects of the DCEU, which was a Deathstroke movie
Mm.
where Batman was the villain.
Ooh,
Because it
interesting.
was going to be from the point of view of Deathstroke, and if he's going after Batman, then Batman would realistically be the villain of his story, and it
Mm-hmm.
was going to bring back Joe Manganiello. I don't know how to pronounce that dude's name either.
Joe
It was going to bring,
Manganiello.
and it was
I
going
don't
to
know if
bring
that's
back Ben Affleck, even though it seemed like that role was killing him. Literally, he went back to the bottle hard because of Batman.
Yeah.
But fucking hell, man, imagine a Batman action movie with Deathstroke, directed by the dude who did the Raid and Raid 2. God damn it, DCEU. Why did you fumble the bag that hard? I don't understand.
That's a major flop for sure. Major,
You're,
major
you're
flop.
you're like, hey, let's throw money at this Harley Quinn movie. Let's throw money at the Black Adam. But no, not this Batman action movie from the dude who fucking made the Raid. What?
Who's the other Gareth? Is it Edwards?
Yes, he did Godzilla and Rogue One and
Mm.
that movie with Denzel Washington's son that no one remembers.
Oh, the
And maybe the
creator.
rest. Yeah,
That movie sucked.
I I
One
didn't
good
hate it.
Radiohead needle drop, and
Yeah, I didn't hate it, but I look at it as an adaptation of a video game that doesn't exist, and then it kind of
Mhm.
works for me.
Okay, that's fair. Visually, very striking. Like a lot of the
Yes.
production and like
Oh yeah, the
design and
plot
like
is terrible, and John David Washington. I don't want to say he's a bad actor because he is given good performances, but
mhm.
fucking hell is he wooden most of the time.
Yeah, but you need a role that like he needs like roles that are written for him, or he needs to pick and choose like what his like skill set is good for. But
Stoicism is not his. They keep casting him as stoic, and he cannot do it.
yeah, but
Like
it kind of
Tenet
works for
does not
Tenet.
work. Tenet
I hate
doesn't work
Tenet, but I feel like that
because
works for him.
I wish they would have switched roles. Robert Pattinson and him. Goddamn, Robert Pattinson would have injected that movie with some fucking energy. Goddamn. Throughout that entire movie, John David Washington just has the Zoolander face, that blue steel, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what are we doing? Stop it.
I kind of got it for Tenet. Okay, so we're pretty off base. Screenagers, we're back. Welcome back to the canon. We've got Sailor back. That is that lovely voice that you're hearing talking about all the different Gareths and Pattinsons and Washingtons and whatnot. But we're back. We finally have Sailor back after like a year-long hiatus due to various technical difficulties. Although he was on one of our bonus episodes before the season started. But Sailor, welcome back to the canon. How are you doing?
I've missed you guys so much, and by guys, it's just me and you. Um, there's no one else. Every time we talk, we pick movies that everyone's like, no, I'm good. I don't
Yeah.
want to talk about Birth of a Nation. I'm good.
We
So,
haven't done Birth of a Nation, but I assume it will be just the two of us once that episode happens.
have we not?
We have not. We did the other D.W. Griffith movie. We talked Intolerance.
Oh, we sure did. We sure
Yeah.
did, Raph.
Yeah.
They run
Weird
together
times.
in my mind because they're both fucking in excruciating experiences that I do not wish on anyone.
Well, that's interesting because this movie is so completely different from Intolerance, where Intolerance is an old black and white silent film that drags on for far too long. This movie that we're talking about today, The Raid, is a nonstop onslaught of just action and violence. And it's super badass and cool in all of the ways that Intolerance is not. So this should be a slightly more fun conversation than the one that we had about Intolerance. So I'm I'm looking forward to it.
Uh, before we get into the review proper, some people know this, some people don't. 2012 is my favorite movie year ever. There's so many
Interesting.
movies that came. I know it's a very odd year. A lot of people pick like 82
Well, it's
or
an even
81.
year.
It isn't even a year.
12. Yeah.
It was. There are so many movies that came out that year that just lit my brain on fire. This is one of them, and it's not even in my top 15. That should go to show that how many movies came out that year that just impressed me more. And this is a movie that I consider top 5 best action movies of all time. The only
Interesting. What else came out? I thought this was 2011. Do I have that wrong?
it technically yes, but
Oh, but
I don't think the rest of us could see it because we don't live in Indonesia in 20. I
you'd
mean,
be
I can't speak for
surprised
you.
how many people do live in Indonesia.
I mean, that's fair. That is fair. I'm speaking for both of us, and I'm
Yeah.
making huge assumptions. I don't think either one of us live in Indonesia. You can't trust IMDb when it comes to dates. Always
Mm-hmm.
look at what the date they have at the top and then scroll all the way down to release dates because then you'll find an accurate release date. Because if it played in a city one time, they're like, that's
Mm-hmm.
when it came out. And I'm like, God damn it, IMDb. No, it didn't. No one
Yeah.
could see it.
Okay. That's
So
fair.
yes, technically it is a 2011 movie, but I believe for the most of us, the majority of us, it was a 2012.
Okay. So you're doing when it was released, sort of
When
like,
my eyeballs could see it.
yeah. What else is in your top movies of 2012? What's
Ooh,
like your top 5 from that year?
I'm not
Because
even.
I
My
can't
top
remember any movies
7
from
because I
that
don't
year.
even have a top 5. I have a top 7, and
Okay, give
I
me
really
7.
hope I can remember them all.
Okay.
And they are in no order:
Okay.
Looper,
Okay.
Cabin in the Woods,
Got it.
Django Unchained,
Got
Avengers:
it.
Skyfall,
Django.
Silver Linings Playbook.
Hate that movie.
That's fair. A lot of people don't, but I love it. God damn it. Um,
I'm not a David O. Russell guy.
Wreck-It Ralph. Did I say that one?
Not yet. I haven't seen
Okay,
that.
so that's my 7.
That's okay. That's a good 7. A very Sailor 7.
Mhm.
Yeah. I like those movies, or most of those movies, at least the ones that I've seen. I don't know if I would call it my favorite year, but I get it. I can get down with it for sure. And The Raid is somewhere just outside of that top 7, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's very close to being in the top 7. I just saw all of those movies at least 3 times in the theaters.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. It was a very. I spent a lot of money in 2012 in the theaters.
Yeah. What a year it was.
What a year!
What a year. Back that, before Netflix totally ruined our viewing habits, and we still frequented the theaters to experience movies with a crowd of strangers and experience feelings together. This is a great movie, though, to see in a theater. So you saw The Raid in theaters when it was first released
Yeah,
stateside?
yeah, I saw it in theaters. Yeah.
what was that like? Were you like blown away? Was your theater packed? Were people like oohing and eyeing and stuff? Like what did that look like?
When I usually go to the theaters, I go at such a weird time that it's very rare for me to. I mean, unless it's a movie I'm dying to see and I have to see it on opening night because I don't want to. I don't want it to be spoiled. I want
Mm-hmm.
to be in the moment. I need to see it. You know, like a Quentin Tarantino movie. I saw that shit day one. Django Unchained.
Django.
I saw that on Christmas in a theater filled with rowdy black people. Loved it, but
Why they got to be
throughout,
rowdy? Damn.
well, throughout the movie, they kept saying, "Kill that white man, Django! Get that motherfucker!" And I was like, "All right, guys, calm down. I'm part of y'all. I'm with Django on this one, y'all." So I didn't.
I'm one of the good whites. That's
Yeah,
what you're saying.
I'm good. I'm good, y'all. Yeah, fuck Calvin Candy. He ain't shit. So I don't have that experience with Raid where people like, fuck Mad Dog, get him, fuck him
Yeah.
up.
You didn't see it in a
Yeah,
crowd full of rowdy Indonesians.
yeah, unfortunately, no. But
Oh
I do
man.
remember seeing it, and this is a perfect segue to get
Mm-hmm.
into a new ongoing segment I would love to pitch to you, Raph, which
Oh
is
wow.
called, yeah, it's a new segment.
Okay.
You're probably not going to use it often because this was this man usually had impeccable taste, but not
Okay.
always. And my segment's called "I Love You, Roger Ebert, but God damn it, you were wrong."
Yeah. Wow. That
Roger
is.
Ebert hates this fucking movie, and I still, to this day, do not understand. Like he gave this movie a tongue lashing as if it beat up his wife in front of him. Like I don't understand his entire review, and I just read it, and I was gonna
Mhm.
read it on air, or at least parts of it. And he's just like, it's action and violent for action and violence sake. And I'm like, yeah, it is. You're 100% correct, Roger Ebert.
Yeah,
I
and that's
don't
awesome.
understand why that's a negative. It delivers exactly the experience it tells you it's going to, and I don't to try to fault a movie for giving you an experience it told you it was going to deliver is so weird. It's like
Yeah.
saying, "Oh, this screwball comedy, it's got too many jokes." It's like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? The fucking this concert film, too many songs.
Yeah. I
This
it
horror
was
movie, too many kills. It's like,
it
the fuck are you
was
talking about, Roger?
this is a really or indicative of like an interesting larger conversation about movies and just like how we watch them and stuff. Like this review in particular um that he wrote, because there is like this is like probably one of his like more famous like Ebert, what were you thinking? And I don't know if he ever ended up like backtracking on his initial review in like years prior, because there are some movies where like he like initially gave like scathing reviews, and then like, you know, 20-30 years later he would be like, oh okay, my bad guys, this movie actually does kick ass. But
I think he died I think he died not too long after. I think this movie
yeah,
might have killed him. I think it might have beat the
it
shit
may have
out of
actually
him.
killed him. Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe
it
that's
might
why
have.
he hated it. Yeah.
But he also gave to the Wonder like 5 stars. So at the end, I don't know. His taste might have been slipping. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, right, so like Ebert is an interesting figure in just like film in general. Obviously, he's like sort of like the go-to sort of like gold standard for film criticism, but and not to like, you know, poo-poo the name of like the great Roger Ebert, because I do think that he was an amazing figure, still is an amazing figure in the history of cinema, and like has taught a lot of us about like the beauty of cinema and like how to watch movies and all that stuff. But at the same time, I think we should remember that like this dude sort of like fell into film criticism as a career path. Like he was not someone who was like birthed in the in like the love of cinema that like many folks who are uh film reviewers, happen to be. Like he didn't study film, he never like intended to be a filmmaker or anything like that. He was just like working at the was it the Chicago Tribune, um
Hmm.
and I think he wanted like a completely different beat, and their film reviewer like left or whatever, and they were like, "Hey Ebert, it's on you now." And he just sort of like took it and ran with it. Obviously he ended up being like, because he's an amazing writer and like a super super smart dude, he was able to like completely reshape the way that a lot of us think about movies. But again, slight caveat, like he wasn't necessarily like always like the biggest like movie film person. And I'm saying that to highlight that like his negative review of this movie, like you were saying, Sailor, is to say that like there wasn't enough like character or plot, which to me is like the sort of like biggest detriment to how we as like a society at large watch and interpret movies, in that we like want all of them to just be these like forms of narrative. Like we celebrate just like movies that have good writing or like character depth and are like super like are more uh like replicate like great literature, as opposed to just like using the medium specifically of cinema to like communicate whatever it is that it wants to communicate, which could just be we just want to showcase amazing stunt work and martial arts for 90 minutes. And like that's what The Raid does. And to consider its aims at doing that anything other than a success, I think is like a failure to understand what the movie is.
Yeah, I don't want to shit on the Raid because he has a fair number of detractors because of how hard he went after horror in the 80s.
Hmm.
I mean, it's insane to think that two critics on live television basically doxed the head of the studio. Siskel gave the address of one of the heads of the studio and said, write to them, tell them that this movie is no good. Friday the 13th is the movie I'm talking
Hmm.
about. And I'm like, that's insane. That's so I know a lot of people shit on Roger Ebert and dismiss everything he has ever said out of hand because of how hard he went after horror, which in some respects I guess is understandable. But the man got a fucking Pulitzer Prize for film
Yeah.
criticism. The man
Yeah.
knew how to write. So even if I disagreed with some of his takes, I usually agreed from his vantage point. I'm like, all right, I understand why you gave Garfield A Tale of Two Kitties a higher review than The Raid, but not based on the review, because I understand taking every movie as its own experience. It's
Hmm.
unfair to the movie to put it up against anything else, whether it's the political times or how it's aged or the director or actor that's in it that got canceled or whether any other bullshit that's not the movie itself.
Hmm.
Take every movie as its own movie, review it accordingly. And he did that for the most part. But for this one, it's honestly one of his worst written reviews too, because it's just a bunch of word salad saying it's violent and it's too much action. I don't like it. That's 400 words of that, and I'm like, God damn, Roger, I wish you were still alive so I can just talk to you about this one specifically, not the English ones you didn't like, not the one like this one specifically, because like you just said, even if you look at it as because I think the best action movies have you can draw a line of action all the way back to great dance numbers from like
Hmm.
Gene Kelly or Fred Astaire. Because if you look at Jackie Chan and you look at his biggest influences, he has always said the silent film stars like Chaplin and Buster Keaton, and then also the
Mhm.
dancers, because there's a likeness to their footwork, and you're watching them pull off these amazing numbers. Now, just imagine if Gene Kelly was doing it with Sid Charisse while they're also punching people in the face. That's just
Yeah.
taking those intricate choreographed dance numbers, but then also on top of that, introducing stunts or fight choreography on top of the footwork. And I think when you look at the raid, it has that effortless
Mhm.
choreography that so few movies. That's I think this is another reason why people gravitate to the John Wick movies so much, is that Keanu Reeves is one of the only Americans that can properly do action choreography where it doesn't look like he's counting the moves. And
Mhm.
it's so hard. It's a pet peeve of mine. Even the best shit, even Daredevil, I love that show, but you can literally watch the actors count their marks, like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You can
Mhm.
see it because they'll just stop and stutter a little bit because they're waiting for Charlie to get into movement so they can get punched in the face. Keanu Reeves does it effortlessly, and then you watch this movie and you're like, these actors are built for this. I don't know
Yeah.
how many times or how many shots, how many times they had to do setups, but the end result is just magnificent. It's like literally watching the best dancers you've ever seen pull off the best dance moves you've ever seen, but at the end of that dance move, 50 people are dead on the floor.
Yeah. um there's like I think everything that you're saying, um the like criticism, and it's not just Ebert, right, who like levied this kind of criticism against this movie of like, yeah, it's a lot of action and stuff, but like where's the plot and all that. Which again, I totally get why that is like what people look for when we go to see movies, because there are a lot of action movies that are able to like marry the two things, right? Like you see some comparisons of The Raid to like Die Hard, which is a great action movie that is like amazing at using the space and like the limitations of that space that it's within to like create these amazing fight sequences and like shootouts and all that stuff. But it also has like an incredibly rich narrative with like great character moments and all of that stuff. But that's like never what this movie is intending to be. So to like judge it on that scale seems like unfair to the movie. And we also like at the same time like will levy the criticism against. I was watching the don't ask me why, but I was watching the newest Jurassic World movie. Not Jurassic Park, whatever. And you watch that movie and it's like a 2.5 hour like super bloated thing about like famine and whatever with like some dinosaurs, and there's like so much just like unnecessary plot and like bad character moments, and people watch that movie and they're like, why do we care about the plot and the characters? Just give us dinosaurs because like that's cool. um and it's like we can't have it both ways. We can't like levy that criticism against Jurassic Park while also saying that like the Raid needs to give us more character moments, because if it's telling us like, hey, we're just here for great action and then delivers amazing action, we should be satisfied.
100%. I believe I said it on the Mad Max Fury Road episode.
Hmm.
So, and I hate repeating myself, wink, but I'm going to say it again. I believe action is broken down into two parts. There's outdoor action and indoor action.
Hmm.
There's your car chases, your Fast and the Furiouses, your Mad Maxes, the movies that predominantly work outside of the confines of a building. And then obviously there's the indoor action, your diehards, your John Wicks, your the raids. And in the latter category of the indoor action, I find it hard to compare this to any other movie because no other movie outside of the sequel does what this does as well. I think John Wick only exists because they have this to work off of. And the directors could say that they didn't watch this. I
Hmm.
find that hard to believe because they're both, or at least one of them was a stuntman. So I'm like, there's no way you're going to tell me a stuntman didn't watch a movie that has some of the best action stunts
Hmm.
outside of Jackie Chan. So I think that the movie's influence and impact have really. I don't want to keep dunking on Roger Ebert, but I'm like, I wish you would have lived long enough to see, or maybe he would have hated it more because of the impact and influence this is having on cinema, where it is literally there is no plot. And I mean, I guess we haven't even talked about the plot, but we can get into it now. Indonesian cops go into a building that is run by this kingpin, and they make it halfway up the building until the kingpin says, "Hey, everybody in the building, I'm gonna give you X if you kill all the people in this building." And then the cops have to fight everyone in the building until they go up to the top and take out the kingpin. That's it.
Amazing.
It's an amazing. It's But here's the thing. Basically, what this movie is Bruce Lee's The Game of Death.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's Mortal Kombat, the movie.
Yup.
I mean, it's a very simple template in which to create an escalation of violence. No, we don't have your John McClane. I don't even know the name because I'm not going to look it up. I don't know the name of the main character.
Rama,
I don't really know that much about him in this movie. He has more character
pregnant wife,
development in the second one. But
brother.
what's that?
He has a pregnant wife and a brother.
Yeah, none of that means anything. It really doesn't. It
No.
really, honestly, it doesn't mean anything to the plot of this movie.
Yeah. And we don't need it.
John
It
Wick,
doesn't matter.
I'm not John Wick. John McClane is is held at such a high level of esteem because it's the first action movie, or at least one of them, to break the mold of we got to get an expert or a specialist to come in and solve the problem. John McClane was just a normal, everyday dude. I mean, yeah, obviously he was a beat cop, but he's just a normal dude caught in a circumstance that he has to fight his way out of. Again, very similar to the raid where he's in a building and he has to take out guys.
Mhm.
Rama is not John McClane. He is the most capable fucking badass on
Yeah.
planet Earth, but he is also surrounded by an entire building that wants to kill him. So even though he is a badass, when you have 100 guns pointed at you, you can only do so much. But I don't care that I'm not following this everyman who has to walk through glass on his bare feet or has to, like, I don't care about any of this. This is, to me, like a fight reel. Like if you
Mhm.
watched YouTube compilations of the best fight scenes, and you'll see shit from Scott Adkins or Michael Jai White or Cynthia Rothrock, and you'll see the best moments of Tony Jaa movies like The Protector or Ong Bak.
Mhm.
This is that movie for 90 minutes.
Yeah.
It's all of the best shit. Cut out the filler. Give me the steak. I don't want the fat.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, cutting out the fat. The like thin plot that there is within this movie is, I think it's brilliant that all of those like beats that we're taking in between action sequences, they're really just there to give you enough of a breather to want more action. And the pacing is so impeccable that by the time it gives you enough time it gives you enough time to recover from what the action that you've just seen and then want more. And as soon as you start wanting more, the action comes back. So like we don't need to sit with the characters and their character moments for that long because that's not the point of those like in between scenes. The point of those in between scenes is to just like let your heart rate go down so that you can then watch the next action scene, which You brought up Mortal Kombat, and I think that like action movies get compared to video games a lot, and it might be fair or unfair, but I do think that like the relationship between a movie like this and video games is kind of interesting, where it's like, okay, you have this like really capable fighter, and he's fighting off all these goons, and he's like working his way up, literally like leveling up, leveling up, leveling up to the next fight to ultimately fight like the final boss, and like all the narrative around that is just to get us to the next fight. Do you think that that's like a fair comparison for this movie in particular?
I would, yes, uh, yes, I do think you can draw parallels and you find commonalities. I wish the villains stood out more,
Hmm.
but it's hard to say that when it has one of the best henchmen in Mad Dog, who is incredible. He
Yeah.
is the coolest fucking henchman since Lethal Weapon's Mr. Joshua, played by Gary Busey. Because he feels like Gary Busey and the other. Oh, I wish I would have Googled his name before I started saying it. There was an Asian henchman in Lethal Weapon that just tortures the shit out of Mel Gibson, and he was
Hmm.
in a ton of those movies. It's that character plus Mr. Joshua, who is the scariest dude you ever seen. Because this is back before Gary Busey became a meme, and he was
Yeah.
just kind of crazy. Now he's like full blown. Oh my god, you need help. Um, but he was the only dude at the time where you're like, oh shit, he's gonna kill Mad Max. This dude's fucking out of control. Mad Dog is such a brutal killer in this that he takes on the two main characters and he almost beats them both.
Yeah. Well, when you get to that final scene, it's so amazing because like the first fight scene where we see Mad Dog, it just like establishes so perfectly how much of a threat and like how dangerous this dude is. So by the time you get to that second fight, you're like, oh yeah, we need two people in order to defeat Mad Dog for sure. And to me, like, yes, he's a henchman, but to me, like, if we're talking like video game progression of the movie, like to me, he's like the final boss, because like the actual final boss, he's not someone who you're gonna like fight, the drug kingpin himself. So to me, Mad Dog sort of like serves that role. But by the time you get to Mad Dog's second fight with our main character and the other character who's fighting alongside of him, you like still fear for them because we've seen what Mad Dog can do. And again, that doesn't like involve or that like is a form of like narrative structure where right where you understand the threat because of the other fight that we've seen, and that other fight was also really 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 cool, and that's the purpose of the movie. It's not to like explain who this character is through like flashbacks to like his childhood or like some like metaphor about whatever it is, like socioeconomics in Indonesia or whatever. It's just like, hey, this dude's a badass, and now our main character has to fight him, and like that's kind of scary because this guy's really crazy.
Yeah, there's no scene where he gets a call from his sick mother, and you're like, oh, now he's sympathetic because he works for this bad guy for good reasons. No, he's just a piece of shit who
Yeah.
likes to kill, and he's very good at it. And it's crazy that this is not this movie requires a lot of acting, but
Hmm.
this is his second movie, and I did just research it. Gareth Evans has two movies before this.
Hmm.
I did not know that, but apparently he is in his second movie along with the main actor, and then The Raid. So this is his second fucking movie, and the screen presence that he has,
Yeah.
it's understandable why Evans brought him back for The Raid 2 in a completely new role, because he's like, I need this dude again. This fucking dude, he's my Eli Wallach.
Yeah.
He's my Clint Eastwood. I'm just gonna recast him in a different role. I don't care, because no one can do what he can do with just a smolder and a kick to the face.
Yeah. And it's also like, I mean, it's amazing that he has like such a small stature and still presents himself as like this insane threat, this insane danger. Um, with that screen presence, how did you feel about the dude who plays Rama and like his presence as like an action star?
I love that he's cast because if I was casting this movie, I probably wouldn't put him in the lead
Mm-hmm.
because he's such a baby face. Like he's not I'm not going to say like he's super attractive, but he's got a baby face where it's hard for me to buy him. But then when he starts kicking and punching, you're like, "Oh shit, he actually has the skills."
Mm-hmm.
I think he gets better in the second one. I don't want to talk about the second one too much because that's a completely different experience as a movie because that one has a lot of plot. That's the exact opposite of this one in almost every way. That has
Mm-hmm.
so much fucking shit going on. Tons of characters. They're outdoors. They're indoors. There's a prison escape.
Hell
There's
yeah.
like 2.5 hours of shit going on in that movie. Wish would have loved to hear what you thought about that, Roger. But in this one, I can see why after this movie he was getting roles left, right, and center. Like we got to put him in a Fast and the Furious. We got to put him in a Star Wars. We got to put him
Mm-hmm.
in shit because this dude looks like he's the new Tony Jaa, but Tony Jaa seems to be insane. So I don't know if we can work with that dude. So let's just put this dude in shit instead, and it fucking works because I miss this type of action. I think people respond to this movie as strong as they do is because it's the movie they always wanted when they were a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I remember going to my cousin's house, and he was a little bit older than me, and he showed me the horror movies that I wasn't seeing. You know, he's the
Horror
one that showed me
movies.
all the Friday the 13th, and
Okay,
he
I
showed
heard
me all of the
I
not
heard horror
horrors.
movies.
Yeah. I do think we watched a couple of porns, but um, but he was showing me all the horror movies. He's the one that showed me like wuxia Chinese martial arts movies, which I didn't like at the time because they were
Mm-hmm.
flying and shit, and I was like, I don't like any of this. This is dumb. But when he was showing me like realistic action movies at
Mm-hmm.
that time, I was like, okay, I'm responding to this. But even as a kid, watching these cheesy horror movies and watching these cheesy action movies, you knew going into it that there was going to be 30 minutes of great shit and the rest the talkie talk. So you
Mm-hmm.
just had to kind of wait for the boring shit. You had to wait for the subplot involving the little girl. She gets kidnapped. And you're like, oh, fucking hell, get to the
Yeah.
shit.
Who is
So
it that
so
we're
many
saving? Who's a
action
damsel
movies where you're
in
like,
distress?
fuck,
Yeah.
man, I don't care about any of these characters. Kick people in the face more, please.
Yeah.
And this is the movie where it's like, okay, that movie you wanted when you were a 12-year-old, hyped up on Surge and Mountain Dew, got the Mortal Kombat theme rolling around in your fucking skull. This is
Yeah.
that movie, and it fucking
Licking Dorito
delivers.
dust off your fingers. Yeah.
Yes, this is like if you snorted pixie sticks and then punched a hooker in the. I don't know where I was going with that, but this is the movie you like the two little boys in Talladega Nights where they're like, I'm hopped up on
On Mountain Dew, Chip. Yeah.
yeah. If those two kids had money to make a movie, they probably wouldn't have set it in Indonesia, but the essence of what they would have wanted to make would be this movie.
Yeah. That's dude, there were so many moments in while I was watching this movie where because I'd never seen it before, which is kind of wild. This is my first time watching it. I'd always heard that it was great and that I should check it out. But like there were so many moments where the violence and whatnot that I was seeing literally had my jaw on the floor, or I was like saying out loud to myself, "Oh, Jesus Christ." That's the kind of action that we want. Like, if I'm going to watch an action movie, give me that. Give me moments of just like pure awe, you know? Make the stunt work front and center. People always point to the John Wick movies, which I think are great, but I think rarely do those movies inspire the kind of reaction that this movie was getting out of me, where I was audibly gasping or whatever it may be in response to the violence that I was seeing, how it was depicted, and like the level of degree of difficulty that like I knew the stunt workers were able to pull off in order to like put that on screen is so unbelievably high. And yeah, that's what you want when you're, I mean, you said when you're 12, but like we're a couple grown men and that's still what we want, you know? That's what people, this is what the people want. And we should
They
have more
do.
movies like The Raid.
We sure should. Now, I think it's impossible to talk about this movie without talking about another movie that came out in 2012 that had the exact same plot. Have you seen Dread?
No, I have not seen Dread, but I heard Dread is awesome. I did not know that there were a lot of similarities between this
It's the
and
exact
Dread.
same plot. Dread is in a building, and the main kingpin's like, "Kill this dude," and he's a
Mhm.
cop. So it's the exact same plot. And I was going to ask you, and I was kind of hoping you had seen it, why we consider this movie that is just nonstop action canon worthy, and that movie not, when that movie also has a ton of action and has more visual directorial flourishes, because I do secretly believe Alex Garland directed it.
Yeah, that's word on the
Directed.
street.
Um, because the dude who is assigned to that thing, his name has never touched anything even remotely half as good. It's like the director who did V for Vendetta. It's like, no, you didn't. It was the Wachowskis. We've seen the other shit you've made before and since.
Yeah.
Nothing is even close to as good as this. Fuck
Yeah.
off, the Wachowskis. Get fucked. And the Dread feels the same way, where you're like, you've never touched anything even remotely this good ever again. I feel the same way about Enter the Dragon, where you're like, Robert Klaus, you don't even know how to fucking direct shit. Bruce Lee directed this goddamn thing, goddamn it. But Dread, it would never make it on the canon. I don't think many people would even put it on the best action movies of that decade. And yet I think it has as many positives as this movie does, but I don't think anyone looks at it and goes, "Oh yeah, that's canon. That's in the
Interesting. What do you
And
think
I think if you watch,
separates?
I think you would respond to it not as much as this, because again, it doesn't have as much action as this. But what it lacks in the action, it makes up for in visual. There's a lot of slow mo, because the
Hmm.
the pin in that is Lena Headey, the chick from Game of Thrones, is the main
Hmm.
bad guy in it, and she has this drug, and I want to say it's actually called slow mo, because
Nice.
it dilutes time, kind of like the most intense version of like ketamine versus and acid combined, where like everything's hyper visual and time
Hmm.
slow. So there's a lot of action moments. It's set in that slow mo, but it works. Carl Urban is great as Dredd, but it's just interesting to me that two movies came out the same year with the same premise, but one we hold in higher esteem, and the other we're like, yeah, that was good too. And I just find that interesting, that I'm like, yeah, they're both pretty comparable in terms of quality and not action. I guess that is the
Yeah. I
defining
mean, that's probably
characteristic,
the separator, right? The action.
is the action.
Yeah. People
There is
pine
nothing
for
else besides
stories
the
about Indonesian drug lords. I think that's the real thing is we all just need more movies about Indonesian drug lords. Which I say that in like a half joking tone, but also I do think that it is cool that there is a movie in the canon, even though it was directed by a Welsh dude, who I think ended up moving to Indonesia because he was working on a documentary about this like particular martial arts style, and then he got super interested in it and he was like, what if I like made a martial arts movie that like highlights this particular martial arts style, which is super cool. But again, it is interesting to and like cool to know that there is a movie from Indonesia, which like we don't think of as having like a super rich film history, but that there is a movie in the canon that's sort of like, obviously this one movie doesn't highlight and like encapsulate everything that there is about Indonesian culture, like I'm sure very far from it, but just something from that area of the world that we like otherwise wouldn't get. which I think is pretty cool.
I love the fact that simply through region and location, certain movies are considered art films
Hmm.
because they are foreign. And if this came out in Blockbuster back in the day, I honestly feel like they would put it in the art house or foreign category and not action.
Yeah.
Even though I don't know the version you saw, but I believe there's a dub version with Linkin Park songs and shit. And I'm like, they did everything they could to cater to an American audience when it came to the home release, and Blockbuster would still be like, yeah, but they're not white enough, so we
Yeah.
gotta,
They're English and Linkin Park, but Asian, so art
yeah,
house.
yeah. Like Mad Max back in the day, even though they redubbed Mel Gibson's voice because he was too hard to understand, apparently, they still released that shit like art house or foreign because they're like, yeah, he's white, but he's
But
got a weird twang to his voice, so I don't know.
yeah, Australians, are they fully white?
Yeah, are they though? I don't know. They're a different white.
Okay, the other thing that I wanted to ask you is, and I think we've like touched on it a little bit, we've mentioned Bruce Lee, we've mentioned Jackie Chan. Where do you think this movie sort of like sits in the like line of martial arts movies and like what it's pulling from, what it influences? Like obviously we've talked about John Wick a lot, but I just was curious if you had any other thoughts about like where this movie sort of like falls in like the history of martial arts cinema as a whole.
I believe we have a top 100 action movies list hitting the website soon. Shameless
Nice.
plug. I compiled that list a while ago. Duke immediately started getting writers for it, even though I think he got like a first draft. I never really. So I don't know where the raid will end up on that list. So
Mm-hmm.
take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt because it could be, I know it's probably in the top 10,
Mm-hmm.
but I've watched all of these movies. I've watched your Jackie Chan's, your Bruce Lee's, your Jimmy Wang Yu's, the One Armed Swordsman. I go all the way back, baby. Toshiro Mifune. I'm a big cinema fan. Watched a lot of action in my time. I've watched all
Bona fides.
the Golden Harvest movies. I think this is as good an action movie you can possibly fucking make. I think it is a perfect action movie across the board. Does it have the same visuals as an
Mm-hmm.
Enter the Dragon? No. Is the lead as charismatic or memorable as a Jackie Chan? No. Does he have the on screen presence of a Bruce Lee? No. But what it has that those movies do not have is nonstop action. And we're
Mm-hmm.
just going to keep circling that in red and underlining it and hitting it with exclamation points because it really cannot be understated. If you have not seen this movie, it is Mad Max Fury Road, but instead of trucks, it's kicks to the face or knives to the gut. That's
Yeah.
all this movie is oh fuck, we're in an untenable situation. Now I have to kill everyone in this building to survive. It's that movie. There is, I think of the 90 minutes of this movie, I would honest to God say 60 minutes are just action.
Mm-hmm.
The 30 minutes that are not action, it's a moment of suspense where the character finds himself in like a crawl space and a
Yeah.
character is also stabbing that wall with a long machete. And you're like, oh fuck,
Oh my god, dude,
he might
machetes
get
are so
stabbed in.
scary. Machetes are such an underutilized weapon in cinema. Like
Yeah, and
visually, it connotes a terror that like other weapons do not. I see someone wielding a machete on screen and I am like more fearful than I have ever been watching anything else. They are terrifying. Oh my
yeah,
god.
and there's parts of the world where people just walk around machetes and they fuck you up because
Yeah.
god, it's a giant blade and this dude is just stabbing the wall. This is the moment of John McClane walking through the glass, basically. Because
Mhm.
there's not many moments because there are people in the building that are kind of trying to help where they have nothing to do with this, that are like, hey, you're a good guy. Everyone in this building should probably die. Hey, hang out here. And the gangsters are like, maybe
Yeah.
he's here. So they start fucking up shit. And I'm not going to say I'm not going to say that it's as intense as the Scarface scene in the bathroom with the chainsaw. I'm not going to say
Mm.
it's that intense, but it is a level of holy shit. This machete's scary. Don't
Yeah.
like this. I would rather deal with the glass in my feet than fucking. And the end of that scene, you're like, fucking hell, this dude is going through some shit. And
Yeah.
I love, there's like that's not an action scene to me, but that's still there's action in it. And as a
Hmm.
12-year-old, I would be like, holy fuck, I don't like this.
Yeah.
This is giving
Uh,
my heart more palpitations than just watching him kick people.
totally. You spoke about the visuals, and it's maybe not as like visually striking as other movies, but I do think that like it is extremely visually impressive. There are a few moments of like camera movement and stuff that are super impressive, but also just like the like spatial awareness to make all of the action sort of be legible in really great ways is like we can't like look past it when talking about this movie. I think that's another one of the great achievements of what is that happens here. Like not only is there amazing action that we're seeing, but it is all presented to us in a way that makes it like extremely clear and communicates to us what it is that's happening within the action, and also allows us to appreciate the work of the actors and the stunt work and the choreography and all of that stuff at the same time. So like I do think that it's worthwhile to take at least like a brief moment to acknowledge that that is like a huge part of this film's success. It's very different from like the like Jason Bourne close up, shaky, quick edit kind of action, which is like definitely for some people. And it's not like all the way to the like John Wick, like we're just doing like single takes with like neon lights so you can see how good everyone is at their stunt work. But I think it serves its purpose and does its job very well in terms of telling us what's happening with the action. I don't know if you had any other thoughts about what's going on with like the camera stuff, the camera work
Oh,
and everything here.
he is doing one of the. I think that's one of the unsung parts of action that don't get talked about enough. And I'm going to use a terrible example as why we need to talk about this more, and that's Quantum of Solace, one of the worst James Bond movies. And the reason why that movie is so fucking awful is I never know where anyone is in relation to another person.
Hmm.
That movie has a car chase, a boat chase, a foot chase, a motorcycle chase, and I think a plane chase. That movie couldn't have more action and couldn't be shorter, and yet all of the action is terrible, and it feels like it goes on forever. Because every action scene is so fucking terrible. Because I'm like, where is James Bond? Who are the people who are hunting him? Where are they? Where is
Hmm.
he? Like, I have no sense of location, direction. It's awful across the board. No offense to that director, he's made better movies before and after, so it's just the action was not his forte.
Is that Sam Mendes?
No, it was Mark. Oh, he was a one-off director. I didn't Google it.
Mark
Um,
Twain?
it was Mark Twain. They got the ghost, old Samuel Clemens. They got him back, baby. He's like, I only know steamboats. I don't know nothing about this.
Yeah, that's
Um,
why
and that
that's
would
why the
make more
action is so
goddamn sense.
confusing. Yeah.
Yeah, it would have made more sense. I'm like, yeah, you don't know what a camera is, you ghost. Um, but then you see this, and you're like, this is a cat that knows exactly what he's doing. He knows where to
Ye-
put the camera to show you. And there's a video many years ago on one of my favorite YouTube channels that's finally back called Every Frame a Painting.
Great
Um,
channel.
he's finally back. I think he did some shit with Criterion or something, so he went
Hmm.
off for a little bit, but now he's back. And he had a video highlighting the action of Jackie Chan and why he's the best to ever do it. Because he will show you where he is, where the people are that he's fighting, where they're coming in from, so you're never confused as, oh, why are there more henchmen?
Hmm.
And then within the frame, will show you what he's about to do without you even knowing it. And the point, one of the examples that he points to is the stairwell in like Project A,
Hmm.
where that's in the frame, and you instinctually know, yeah, someone's going to go down that stairwell. Either Jackie Chan's going to write it down in a fun way, or he's going to kick somebody down, and there's going to be a fun stunt. Something is going to, and then within 5 seconds, you were proven right. Because Jackie Chan knows how to rewire your brain, or hardwire your brain, rather,
Hmm.
to show you through editing or through shit in the frame what is the best thing to do in this moment. And as an action fan, you like, oh, do this thing, and Jackie Chan's already ahead of you.
Yeah.
He also implements the George Miller editing of always following the action by cutting to where the action is in the frame. If that make what's a better way to explain this? If a person is on the left hand side of the truck that
Hmm.
Tom Mad Max is driving, and it follows over, the edit will be right when the bike goes over the truck, and then it will go straight to when it lands. So you don't need to see the whole arc.
Hmm.
Your brain will put together like a comic book. You don't
Yeah.
need to see the wind up and the punch and every single frame of animation. Your brain will put together shit, and he knew where to put the camera to where to edit. So he's filming while he's editing in his brain, and
Yeah. And
that's what.
when you do that, you like, right? Because if you edit it the wrong way, then our brains are unable to like fill in that space between the edits. I think that's what you're getting at. But
Yes, Brett
when you,
Ratner talked about it when he was making the Rush Hour movies with Jackie Chan, and he kept telling Jackie, "You're going too fast. I can't film you." Because in the American way is you got to show the wind up. You got to show the John Wayne arm going back, and then the punch, and then the fall. Jackie Chan moves so fast,
hmm.
and he's used to making shit his own way. So he's like, ah, fucking hell, that he had to like retrain his arms and legs to go slower so the camera can pick it up. And I think
Imagine you're
he
Brett
should
Ratner and
never
you're
listen
like,
to Brett Ratner because he doesn't know what the
and you're
fuck
like,
he's
listen
talking
here,
about.
hey Jackie
Yeah,
Chan, let me tell you how to make a movie. Like, dude, he's Jackie fucking Chan.
this fucking dude on who always looks like he's got coke below telling Jackie
Yeah,
Chan, "You're going too fast. No,
yeah.
move your camera so you can catch, or then edit so then the impact." Show Jackie Chan and
Why
the
don't
man
you
who's
ask Jackie
punching.
Chan how to make the movie instead of
Exactly.
thinking that you can tell Jackie Chan how to make the movie?
Yeah, show Jackie Chan and the dude he's punching in frame at the same time, so then you don't have to do these 17 million fucking edits like the Taken movies, because Liam Neeson is so fucking old he can't jump over a fence. So they have to edit it 17 times so that you can buy that action scene. Jackie Chan's like, no, just do it in one so that you can see me punch the dude. The dude falls over, hits a hot poker. Comes up, hits another dude, and then you can build things in the frame
Hmm.
without cutting, because that's the magic of action. Is as long as I don't need to cut, is if everything's in frame. And Gareth fucking figured that out. Movie 3, he might have done it the first two movies, but the IMDb ratings for his first one don't look so good. So
Hmm.
he definitely mastered it on the raid, because he only cuts when he needs to, and if he's cutting, you always understand what is happening in that cut, in
Hmm.
that edit.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Yeah, like you're saying, you're filling in the space in between. So it right, the clarity of the fight is never lost on you. You're still able to both visually and like mentally follow the action in a way that allows it to keep its for lack of a better word, like keep packing like the same punch, you know?
Yeah, a perfect example would be Into the Dragon, since we talked about Bruce Lee.
Hmm.
There's a scene where he's in a hall, not a hallway, but he's in a door frame, and there's a bunch of henchmen, and we see Bruce Lee head on, like we see his face. So he is in frame, and these henchmen are coming outside of frame, and he's just walking towards the camera, and he's punching and he's kicking them. If Gareth filmed that scene, and it's not a bad shot, it's
Hmm.
fun watching him just take out all these henchmen. But if Gareth filmed that scene, he would have flipped the camera behind Bruce Lee so that we can see them coming in, where they're coming from. We can
Hmm.
see how big the threat is, because if they're just coming off screen, our brains, if we're cynical enough, we're just going to imagine the third person who fell on the floor getting up to be the sixth person that gets hit. But if you have that many stuntmen and you
Hmm.
have the resources and you believe in your actor's ability to do shit, you can get it all in one frame. And since Gareth hired the best of the best, and apparently he had the money to just keep filming, which is, I
Hmm.
think, the problem with a lot of action movies in America is they don't have the time, energy, or resources to get it in that. Jackie Chan's like, fuck it, we're not going to do it until we get it right.
Hmm.
120 takes just so I can skip across this pool and it looks cool.
Yeah.
But he'll keep doing it until it looks cool. American action movies are like, oh, we didn't do it in two. Fuck it, we'll just edit it. So either we have a stuntman doing it, or like, I'll throw a punch. Here's an edit. That dude's on the floor. And when you have the talent and the time, the resources, the energy, the patience,
Hmm.
is Jesus Christ, this must the amount of squib work on the doors, the amount of
Yeah.
broken, like the setups that you would have to do. And I know there's some CGI obviously in some of the
Yeah.
shit,
But like the
but
makeup and special effects that you have to do for each like knife to the neck that
yeah,
happens.
like if you fuck it up, you that guess what? Your actors just have to go through 120 moves again.
Yeah.
And if you're doing this take after take after take, I don't give a fuck how good you are. Your muscle memory is going to start to deteriorate.
Hmm.
You're not going to be able to hit your moves. You're going to accidentally hurt your actor. He's going to kick Mad Dog in the face, or he's going to kick at you, because it seems like he has pretty good control with those little legs.
Yeah.
Um, so, yeah, I can see why it would be an impossibility for American studios. So, thank God that foreign
Hmm.
um, studios or foreign movies are able to do this, and that's
Yeah.
why I
I
think
mean,
this movie is. And I think I answered this movie. I think I answered this question like 20 minutes ago, but just to put a button on it, that's why I think this is as good or better than most Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee or any action star of that time. Your Michelle Yeohs,
hmm.
your Brian Thompsons, your whoever the fuck, whatever action Asian star of that time, or even American, because I'll put
Hmm.
this up against your John Claude Van Damme's, your I'm naming people who are not American, but in American
Yeah.
action, Arnold Schwarzenegger's, your Sylvester Stallone's, your Bruce Willis's. This is fucking better than any of those guys. You're gonna put this up against Commando? The fuck out of here! The fuck are you
Yeah.
talking about? No,
So
this is
I
better.
think I think one of the interesting things with that, and like when you like, right, we can talk about um like Eastern action movies versus like Western action movies. Obviously, like the East has like a much richer history of martial arts, and I'm gonna butcher the name, but the martial art style that's popular in Indonesia that like they're highlighting in this movie is called Pencak Silat. So like, right, like in Asia, whether it be various parts of China or Korea or whatever it is, like the history of martial arts is like so much richer than it is obviously in the West. So what you're doing with a lot of those like movie stars is you're taking martial arts experts or stars and like turning them into movie stars. Like Jackie Chan is first and foremost a martial arts expert. Bruce Lee was the same and then like learned how to be a movie star, as opposed to, we can talk about like maybe more like modern American action movies or like Western action movies where it's like okay, cool. Chris Hemsworth is kind of a movie star, but like he's not necessarily a martial arts expert. So like when we tried to like make him do that, or like Charlize Theron in like Atomic Blonde or whatever, Keanu Reeves, like it kind of worked where we were able to transform a movie star into a martial arts star. But like it's not always the case because we don't have so many people who are like first and foremost martial arts experts. When we do, it ends up being like Steven Seagal, and then it's like, oh, okay, yeah, this dude is like, a martial arts expert or whatever. But then like you put him into movies, and like sometimes they'll be kind of fun, but oftentimes it's like, oof, like this guy is hard to watch on screen, like has like negative charisma. So I just think like, with a movie like this, with like this lead character or this lead actor, or I guess both lead actors actually, who both have like histories of being like martial arts guys, and then from there they were able to turn into movie stars, which I think that's part of like what is able to like make this movie successful, right? They're not, obviously neither of them are Bruce Lee or Jackie Chan, but I think it's easier to like have that translation from action person to movie star as opposed to like the other way around. I don't know if you agree with that.
To a degree, I agree, but the reason why I'm hesitant to say that just because you have the ability to do splits like a Jean Claude Van Damme doesn't mean you are necessarily more adept at action. And I'm not throwing shade at him. I'm saying specifically, I don't know if you've seen a lot of the movies of Michelle Yeoh's, but go back
No.
and watch them. You're like Police Story 2 Super Cop.
Hmm.
Watch that movie and then remind yourself that Michelle Yeoh is not a martial artist, nor does she come from a stunt woman background. And there is a scene where she drives a motorcycle on the back of a train and then jumps off that train onto a ladder that's on a helicopter. And then
Yeah,
you
well, she's
go,
a queen, so like, she's one of one.
like the fact that is not a martial artist, but
Yeah.
you would believe that she spent as much time as a Sammo Hung or a Bruce Lee, like we were saying. So I think it comes down to believability. I can buy anyone as an like Bruce Willis came from fucking moonlighting, and then he
Yeah.
did Die Hard, and then we're like, oh yeah, I buy this forever now. So I think it comes down to if we're talking specifically martial arts, I think yeah, it does help that you have. But like you said, Steven Seagal apparently is a master of Aikido or whatever bullshito shit that he can do. But you would never know it watching his fucking movies because he's fucking terrible. So I would rather see someone who, like Jason Statham, was an athlete, but he wasn't a martial artist. He was a fucking diver or a swimmer
Yeah,
or
he
whatever
was a
the fuck he
diver.
was. But I buy him as an action lead far more than I buy fucking Steven Seagal. I buy him more as an action lead than Chuck Norris, and that dude fought Bruce Lee. So I
Yeah.
think it comes down to one, you got to have either the ability to kick or the physique that would lend my believability to think, yeah, this dude can throw a punch or a kick.
Hmm.
So yeah, it really is a half and half thing. Where, but yeah, I do think it does come down to the more adept you are at a martial art, the more believable I will find you. But it is very hard to find a martial artist who is also a credible action lead. I mean,
Hmm.
two bad examples, like we already said, Steven Seagal and Chuck Norris. I think both of them have the fucking charisma of a bag of mayonnaise and wet hair.
Yeah.
But
But I
then
guess
you
also
have, go ahead.
with these dudes, like, right, like because the movie understands on such a deep level like what it is and what it is asking of its leads, where it's like, hey, I don't need you to, do what Bruce Willis is doing in Die Hard. I just need you to like deliver a couple of lines and then like look cool while doing all of your action sequences. So, right, like like as a filmmaker, you kind of have to understand like what it is that you're asking of your leads. Cause like that's like kind of how Jackie Chan started, where he was like, it was just like, hey, we're gonna hide this dude because we don't know how much he can like carry a film. And then you're like, oh wait, this dude has like all of the charisma in the world, so we can do like so much more with him than just highlight his martial arts. So I think this movie understands with like the two leads, like, okay, we're just gonna sort of like hide them, but then they prove to have like just enough charisma to like maybe go a little bit beyond what this particular movie is asking of them, but they like certainly have enough screen presence and all of that to absolutely carry what it is that this movie needs from them.
Yeah, 100%. They feel like the parts of this movie feel like, to go back to my 12-year-old, it does kind of feel like 12-year-olds putting on a show in the barn, because they have all this energy, and it does feel, it doesn't feel like a Hollywood production. It does feel like it was probably made for pennies on the dollar.
Mm-hmm.
But what it has is the fact that everyone involved is giving 120% every frame of this movie, and you feel it.
Yeah.
And when you look at the lead, like I said, he does have that baby face when he has the helmet on, and he's supposed to be the leader of the SWAT thing, and well, not the special forces thing. I'm like, you look like a little baby. You got a little baby face. Look at your little baby face. You still look like you got your mama's tit milk mustache on your face. You just got, sucking on the tit.
Jesus.
Like this little baby. But then I think that also works to the film's benefit, because then you're like, oh shit, he is just, yeah, he might be the most capable badass, but yeah, I buy him as just a dude caught in a situation. But then you surround him with all of these other incredible martial artists.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know we talked about Mad Dog, but there's other people in his squad that are as capable as he is.
Mm-hmm.
And there are other people outside of Mad Dog that aren't Mad Dog, unfortunately. But because I do think that there's the one weakness of this movie, that the sequel really nails, is memorable looking characters. That
Mm-hmm.
characters don't need to have any more depth than a Street Fighter character.
Yeah.
You look at a Street Fighter character and you go, that's the green guy. Got it. That's the dude with the knives for hands. Got it.
Yeah.
Like archetypes, tropes, cliches, but identifiable characters. That's really all you need. And this movie doesn't have this. I mean, outside of Mad Dog.
Mad Dog. I think Machete Guy a little bit.
A little bit, but I couldn't tell you right now what he looked like.
Yeah.
What he looked like.
I saw it pretty recently.
So there's a kid with a baseball bat, and the hammer girl who's just beating. That's all she does, is just beat the shit out of people with hammers, and you're like, this. I want a whole movie of this bitch. This bitch is awesome. So there's not that many of these, and I wish there was at every like 25 minutes or so, like another character building up to Mad Dog. If this is going to do a Mortal Kombat thing,
yeah, if we're gonna do a full video game style movie,
I'll take a big dude and a little dude that look like Bebop and Rocksteady or something. Like I'll take something.
It's a lot of henchmen and not a lot of bosses. That's what this movie is. Yeah, it's a lot of pounding goons, right? A lot of just like smashing B and pounding goons, and not enough, actual bosses to fight.
See, why didn't you say that in your review, Roger Ebert? Pounding goons.
Yeah.
Then I would have understood what you were talking about. Too much pounding goons, 1 star.
Yeah. No. All we do over here is pound goons. That's all we do here at the Canon.
I don't know why that sounds like a racist sexual move somehow.
Pounding goons? I think that says more about you than the actual phrase.
You know what? You're not wrong, Raph. You're not wrong. Sometimes you hear what you want to hear.
With that, before you get yourself into any trouble with this whole pounding goons thing, I think we've covered the raid. I think we've explained why it is that this movie is essential. If you're ready for it, I think we can jump in to a few recommendations. But before we do that, any final words or thoughts about the raid and why this movie is canon worthy, why it is essential?
I don't want to just keep reiterating things I've already said, so I'll just leave it at it is a perfectly constructed action extravaganza that grabs you by the throat and doesn't stop punching you into the face until the second one comes out, and then it does it again. And somehow the sequel is even better, even though it has too many subplots and it goes on forever. That last fight in that sequel, it might be the best action. Have you seen the second one?
No,
Oh, Raph, I don't know if
I
you're
got
ready.
to. Yeah.
I don't know if
My-
you're ready. That last fight in the kitchen in the second one, Jesus Christ.
okay. Let's
Jesus Christ. It's so good. That might be my recommendation. Just watch the
just
last
that
fight.
scene. Yeah.
You don't need any context. I don't know who these characters are. It doesn't matter. These
Just
guys,
watch him fight.
because they fight with knives, and that kitchen ends up very bloody.
Oh, hell yeah. Okay. I think, all right, this is perfect. So I can go watch the Raid 2. Let's do our recommendations for the Raid. You know the deal. 3 recommendations each. At least one has to be a movie. The other 2 can be any and everything else. Movies, books, TV shows, video games, whatever the hell we want. Connections to the Raid can be as loose or on the nose as we like. No movies that we recommend can be other movies in the canon. All that said, Mr. Sailor Monsoon, what is your first recommendation?
My number one, well, not number one, my first recommendation is tied to this movie in the sense that this director has worked with the director of The Raid before because they teamed up on that VHS segment I was talking about, Safe Haven.
Nice.
This director's name, I'm gonna butcher it, but I'm gonna try my hardest. Timo Tajanto, who has as good a body of work, as impressive a body of work as Gareth's, in the
Mm-hmm.
sense that he has never stopped working and he keeps making action movies. Headshot, May the Devil Take You, and May the Devil Take You Too, and even his horror movies feel very action packed. But he made a purely straight on action movie that stars the lead of The Raid, Iko Iwas. Don't know how to
Mm-hmm.
pronounce the name. I'm gonna try my hardest. And one of the leads of The Raid, Joe Taslim, in a movie called The Night Comes for Us.
Oh, fuck, dude. You took my first one. That
I'm
movie kicks ass.
I didn't think because I asked about Raid 2, so I was like, maybe he hasn't seen this. I was kind of hedging my bets.
The Night
It
Comes for
kicked.
Us was my intro into insane Indonesian action movies.
It fucking rips so goddamn hard, and this is another reason why I don't like shitting on Netflix because I'm like they made it, and I'm like it's fucking incredible.
Yeah,
It's
but like they buried it, and it's like, how do you
I
like?
knew.
Yeah, like people don't just like come across The Night Comes for Us unless they have a friend like you, Sailor, who's like, hey, there's this awesome, insanely violent, bloody action movie on Netflix. You should watch it.
Yeah. Well,
It's great.
before we move on, I would for the people who have not seen it, a quick little plot synopsis. It's about a gangland enforcer who just gets caught in the middle of a triad crime family shenanigans, and he has to punch and kick, just like the Raid. He gets caught in a situation where a lot of
Hmm.
people are fighting, and he's like, "Well, the best way to settle this shit is if I also fight." But he's better at fighting than everyone else, and a lot of people end up dead. The Night Comes for Us. That's the movie,
A lot of
and
pounding goons in that movie for
a
sure.
lot of so many goons get pounded.
Yeah, goons get pounded in the back of a meat shop, in various buildings across Jakarta, in like empty warehouses. Yeah, people they get goons get pounded with hammers, more machetes, knives to the throat again. Yeah, just absolutely one
And
of the
it's
most
also
bonkers action movies.
very bloody. It's not like this where yeah, people die, but in this it's a little bit more visceral where you're like, oof. It's
Hmm.
not as like this feels like henchmen like a shooting gallery where
Hmm.
you don't really give a shit so much. but this one is a little bit more bloody. So
Yeah, it's way more violent, and it's not as like technical with like the martial arts aspect. It's more just like, yeah, people getting fucked up. So you know what? I think I'm just not even going to replace my first recommendation. The Night Comes for Us was going to be my first one, so I think we're just both going to recommend it. Yeah, it. I think it's that worthy for people to watch that we can both recommend it.
you lazy boy.
I had no backups, so
I
what am I
can
going to
I,
recommend? John Wick.
I can
I don't
get
want to
you
do
another
that.
recommendation. That's fine.
No, we're both recommending The Night Comes for Us because
All right,
everyone should
that's
go
fine.
watch it
That's fine.
right now. What is your second recommendation?
Oh, you should gonna okay. All right. If you're a fan of action cinema, which if you're listening to this episode, I'm assuming you are, you should, if you haven't already discovered him, the work of Don Lee. His real name is Ma Dong Sik. I believe
Mm-hmm.
that's again a
Yeah,
lot of names I don't know how to pronounce.
yeah.
A lot of people. God, I hope this isn't another movie that you
No,
picked.
no, no, no. But this
Okay.
dude kicks ass. Also,
Yes, he is a big barrel-chested Korean. I believe he's
Korean.
South
Yep.
Korean. Yeah. Most people would know him from Train to Busan because he's fucking amazing in that movie, and he
Mm-hmm.
kicks an ungodly amount of ass. He has an action series going on right now called the Roundup series. He's made 3 of them in the last 2 years, and the first one, each one is better than the last. Well, I'm not going to say that, but each one is surprisingly decent. But the first one really is the one you really want to watch, and it's Don Lee investigating something that involves him punching things. And that's going to be how I relate all of these movies back to the raid. It involves people getting punched a lot. This isn't this is an easier watch than The Night Comes for Us in the
Mm-hmm.
sense that it's not gonna make you queasy with all the blood.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that type of movie. It's not even like The Raid, but Don Lee, again, built like Donkey Kong, is just
Yeah.
all around because I believe he was a boxer before he was an actor. So he's
That dude is all forearms.
he is, and he takes his hand and he just slaps the shit out of people. And you're
Yeah.
like, this is I need 90 minutes of you just beating people, going into a room being like, hey, do you know anything about this thing? And they're like, no, and he slaps them around. They're like, all right, I do. That's the movie. And he's like, I knew you did, you son of a bitch.
You
And
son
it
of a
just goes
bitch.
on. And there's 3 of them, and they're all fucking fun because you're like, yeah, Don, just beat him with your big old hands. And the thing I love the most about this dude is someone took a picture of him on a plane and he had a Hello Kitty phone protector, and I'm like, God damn, this dude is the
Of
best.
course he does. Yeah.
He's the
Absolute
best.
absolute legend. Like
He
just
he, he turned down John Wick movies because he's like, that motherfucker ain't gonna beat me. That's a fact. He turned down the John Wick movies because he's like, nah.
that is amazing. That is absolutely legendary. Shout out Big Don for sure. Okay, I got to check out these Rounder movies. That sounds dope. For my second recommendation, I am going to do another, not so much dude punching people, but dude doing a good amount of shooting. But I think it's an action movie that like this is pulling from for sure, and just like the work of this director as a whole. And I think most people are probably familiar with his work and may have most likely seen this movie. But if you haven't seen it, I think that The Raid is in many ways pulling from John Woo's Hard Boiled. So
Mm.
if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. Not so much in like the line of like great, Hong Kong like martial arts flicks, but definitely in the line of like great Hong Kong action movies, which I think is another big influence for The Raid. Kind of like marrying those two things. So Hard Boiled is my second recommendation.
Oh god damn. Hard boiled. It couldn't have been a better segue if you tried. And I'm not
Oh,
doing The Killer, but I am
okay.
doing another Chow Yun Fat movie.
Let's go.
because he is not he was one of the actors I purposely didn't mention because I didn't want to overuse his name because he was this was the first movie I thought of
Hmm.
connecting these two movies, and so it's funny that you picked a Chow Yun Fat movie. Mine's a little bit lesser known, and I'm connecting it because the second movie, the second raid, takes place in a prison for 20-30 minutes. That's part of the plot is he has to infiltrate a gang or something by
Hmm.
going into a prison, and then again he just beats the shit out of people there. But this is Prison on Fire,
Great name.
1987, starring Chow Yun Fat, and it involves inside a Hong Kong. I'm taking the plot synopsis from IMDb.
Hmm.
In a Hong Kong prison, two inmates form a friendship and face the difficulty of life on the inside. That's I mean, that's fair. That's a fair plot synopsis. But again, it's Chow Yun Fat. If you know who Chow Yun Fat is, you've
Hmm.
seen Hard Boiled. You know what this man is capable of doing. This isn't like Brubaker or Shawshank Redemption, where you're like, oh man, I wonder if he's gonna get out of this alive. I hope he doesn't get raped by some. No, Chow Yun Fat just
Yeah.
beats the shit out of people. Now he
More
gets
akin to Ricky O.
yeah, not. I wish it was as badass as Ricky O. It's not.
But
Um,
it leans more Ricky O than it does Shawshank.
it sure does. It sure does. Because Chow Young Fat does lose some fights in the movie. It's not like he's full on Ricky, where he's just
Hmm.
ripping out intestines and shit. But there's never a point where you're like, well, I wonder if he's gonna come back and win this fight now. It's Chow Yun Fat. There's no, but it is part of On Fire series.
Hmm.
The first movie is oh my god, City on Fire? Is
Okay.
that City on Fire question mark? Almost positive that's what it's called. Is the movie Tarantino ripped off for Reservoir Dogs?
Hmm.
Where a bunch of criminals stuck in a warehouse after a bank heist gone wrong and no one can trust each other and everyone ends up dead. Guess what? He took that from. He just cut out the fucking bank heist and
Hmm.
didn't show it. City on Fire showed it. But then there's Prison on Fire had a sequel because this one did so well. And Chow Yun Fat is in both City on Fire, Prison on Fire 2. And then there's also School on Fire, which is also a really fun movie. There was a whole series of these fucking things where you just
Amazing.
put location and then on fire, and it's lives up to that title and then some. But yeah, Prison on Fire is my third recommendation. So you're
I
getting
love it.
two back-to-back Chow Yun Fats.
What more could people ask for? I did really want to recommend Ricky O, the story of Ricky, but I think it has already been recommended on a previous episode.
And it's also in the canon.
It's not in the canon.
It's in the canon, Raph, goddammit, and I will fight you.
I don't think it's in the canon.
I know it's not. It
Yeah.
should be. Goddammit, it should be.
Wild, absolutely wild movie. No, I'm going to recommend a video game
Mm.
because this movie has some video game stuff. I'm not a big video game player, so like I don't have any deep cuts whatsoever when it comes to video games. So this will probably be something that like everyone knows and most people have played. But that like Mortal Kombat reboot that they did last year, Mortal Kombat 1, I thought was pretty fun. And
Mm.
in some ways, the raid is kind of like that, where you just are pounding goons. So I think once we're finished recording here, I'm going to go fire up Mortal Kombat 1, pound some goons, and then watch the raid 2. And that sounds like a perfect way to spend the rest of my day.
I mean, you're not wrong. I
All right.
would have loved um, if your video game. There is a video game starring Chow Yun Fat that's in the style of Hard Boiled called Stranglehold, and I'm like, God damn it, Ref, I love
That
you
would have been
if you would have,
amazing if we had done back to back to back Chow Yun Fat. No,
because
just a back to
it's
back.
a fun as fuck game, but it's hard to find now because it was a 360 game, so I don't know what the
Yeah,
backwards compatibility of that is, but it is a video game version of Hard Boiled where you're doing cool bullet time shit or you're sliding on shit, shooting things. It's so fucking fun.
amazing, dude. I saw Hard Boiled like 2 years ago in I think it was the Paris Theater in New York. They had like a 35 millimeter print of it, and like the prints of that movie are like pretty rough. They're in pretty rough shape, but like packed theater on like a Sunday afternoon, everyone's just like howling like the whole time at the screen. It was so much fun. Like obviously, I don't think it's like a screening opportunity that like a lot of people will have, but like man, like whenever you can go see like older movies in like a packed theater with people, like gosh, it's so much fun. Like I would love to see The Raid in a packed theater. You know, it would be so great to experience this with a full audience. But yeah, those are our recommendations. Do you want to quickly go through boom, 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 one, two, three? What is that you're recommending before we get out of here?
Absolutely. The Night Comes for Us 2018, The Roundup 2022, and you could watch the whole trilogy, and Prison on Fire 1987.
Amazing. I've got also The Night Comes for Us, Hard Boiled, and the most recent Mortal Kombat 1 video game. Amazing stuff. Thanks for joining, Mr. Sailor. Before
Mhm.
we leave, is there anything that you recently had on the website or have coming up on the website that folks can check out?
The the most recent thing that I published was the 50 best performances of 2024,
Nice.
which before you before you read it and draw your pitchforks, scroll down to the comment section and read all of the honorable mentions,
Mm,
because again, I consider a lot of 2024 movies to be 2025 movies.
hmm.
So there's not Brutalist or Queer or Nickel Boys or Hard Truths. There's a lot of movies that didn't make the cut, and there's a lot of movies that I didn't get to until after I compiled the cut. I mean, the
Hmm.
list. So yeah, Josh Hartnett from Trap made the cut simply because I didn't see enough movies. But there was, I mean, it's 50 performances, and I left out 15 that I thought easily could have made the cut. And there's a lot of deep cuts, like Fancy Dance. That is such a good movie with such a great lead performance that no one fucking saw. Um, that almost made the cut, but I was just too lazy, and I'm like, I don't want to ask Alvarez for another image
Hmm.
because he's gonna yell at me.
Yeah.
I believe I have a collaboration with Val coming out soon. That's going to be the 50 greatest horror television shows slash
Nice.
miniseries.
Nice.
Um,
Nice. Nice. Nice.
there's a top 100 greatest vehicles list that I'm contributing to that I might do a companion piece the same month or the month after, which will be the 100 greatest flying ships slash time machines list. It's a silly list, and that's about it from the shit I've done. So
Nice. That's good stuff. A lot of lists. If there's one thing we know about you, Sailor, it's that you love to compile a list, which I don't blame you. Lists are good stuff. People enjoy those. I've got, if anyone's curious, a review of Mickey 17 that came out earlier this week. And then last week, we had a new movies to stream for the month of March, and also my 2024 awards, which are slightly less prestigious than the Academy Awards or the Saw Awards, but still very worthwhile, highlighting and wrapping up the year in film that was 2024. We obviously, there's a ton of other great stuff on the website, new Canon articles every Thursday. Bob's got Fear Flashback Fridays every Friday. Ramona's got Romcom Tuesdays. You know, obviously, just a ton of great stuff. New episodes of the Canon that you're listening to right now every Wednesday on whatever platform it is that you fancy for getting your podcast. So look out for us here. We will be back next week on this very feed, wherever it is that you're catching us. We're going to be talking a little Chaplin. We're going City Lights. Very excited for that one. I'm going to be joined by Paul Klein, who is amazing, and you should check out his work before listening to our conversation. I hope that you join us there for that one. And in the meantime, we will see all of you lovely folks in the wasteland.